Exclusive insights, actionable strategies, and ideas that ignite change. You're listening to the Ivey Impact Podcast from Ivey Business School.
Hello and welcome to Dialogue with the Dean, the inaugural series on the Ivey Impact Podcast. I'm Julian Birkinshaw, Dean of the Ivey Business School, and in this series I sit down with Ivey's leading faculty to explore their latest research and tackle the pressing issues shaping business and society. On today's episode, we're diving into the complex and often misunderstood world of blockchain and digital finance. From cryptocurrencies to decentralized transactions, this technology is reshaping the way we think about money, security, and trust in the digital age. So whether you're a beginner or just blockchain curious, we're looking to break it down in a way that makes sense. No tech jargon required. And to help me crack the blockchain code today is Hubert Pun, Professor of Management Science here at Ivey. His research explores how blockchain technology has the ability to revolutionize so many aspects of the business and consumer world. Importantly, Hubert believes Canada might be missing this technological boat. Hubert, welcome to Dialogue with the Dean. It's wonderful to have you here.
Thank you very much. That is my pleasure to be here to share my insight.
Thanks. And before we get into blockchain itself, just give us a little bit of your background. How did you come to be here at Ivey?
Sure. So I got my undergrad and master degree in engineering, and then I worked as a computer network engineer for a few years. And then I got my PhD, graduated in 2010, and then have been with Ivey ever since.
Perfect. Thanks. And you should just help the listeners who have all heard of blockchain with a bit of a definition. What is blockchain? What's unique about it?
Well, a blockchain is a decentralized network. Let me give you an example. I'm a professor. I have a Excel file that consists of the grade of all students. Everyone trusts in the integrity of this file because they trust myself as a professor is not going to do anything fishy or funny with this file. Well, but then you can imagine right now if there's a group of several students like to work together on a scientific project. Well, then they need to trust in one another in order to form a group, because otherwise, if one of them do something funny, then there's no trust within this network. What happens if there's someone in some other part of the world that have the expertise required to do this scientific experiment, but then they do not trust this person? Is that be able to be done? Well, blockchain with a decentralized network, that means rather than one person keeping the experimental result, then everyone keep a copy of the result. If one person trying to mess up with the file, then we can compare the majority rule, and whoever that have the most copy, we trust that is the true, genuine copy.
Got it.
That is the idea where blockchain is decentralized, and that makes the information onto the blockchain to be immutable, permanent, and also immutable.
Got it. So the records sit on the blockchain, and that blockchain is replicated in many different computers around the world so that nobody can tamper with it. And that is a sort of an alternative way of storing records rather than having one central authority that controls it.
That is exactly correct.
So if we take it to the most well-known example, Bitcoin obviously is a very famous cryptocurrency.
Mm-hmm.
And that is essentially a means by which I can, at least in theory, pay somebody for a product because I am paying them over this blockchain. And the opportunity to do that, as opposed to using the traditional system, is that this is a decentralized system. No central bank can kind of interfere with that transaction. Once I've made that transaction, it is there forever. Is that
That is correct. So usually if I were to transfer money to you,
right,
I need to get through the bank,
right,
and then the bank need to get to your bank, and then your bank gets to you.
Yeah.
And so right now with the Bitcoin is a peer-to-peer transaction. So then I can simply transfer the money to you that actually help a lot of people in the unbanked area. Not everyone have the privilege to have a bank account. So therefore, that helps those people that they can also experience within a banking experience as well.
Got it. And the blockchain, a Bitcoin transaction can happen anywhere in the world. Anybody who obviously has access to a digital system can use it. And we need to get to this sooner or later, so let's do it now. I mean, the current value of Bitcoin is hovering around $100,000, and I think that's about as high as it is.
US dollar. $100,000.
Which is, for me, I mean, I've been following Bitcoin's progress. For me, it's just an insane number. Why is it so valuable? What are people seeing in Bitcoin that makes it so valuable?
Well, so what makes it valuable is like supply and demand.
Right.
So there's so many people demanding for Bitcoin. But the question is why people like to have a Bitcoin that actually illustrate the distrust of a centralized authority. As an example, right now with the U.S. government changing between from the Democrat to Republic, a lot of things have changed. But then, the U.S. government actually have a lot of say about how the currency is going to be, about how much currency can be released. Yeah. So therefore, if I were not able to trust what happened in the government, then I like to have something that trusting the technology rather than trusting a central authority.
Good. So in the old days, we would buy gold because we knew that gold had some sort of immutable value, a sort of intrinsic value, I guess. When we didn't trust governments, we put our money into gold or we buried our money underground or whatever. Nowadays, people are saying we think that Bitcoin might have the equivalent value of gold, and yet, it doesn't have any intrinsic value. It is literally just a bunch of ones and zeros. It is literally just a digital thing. So you're saying that somehow people trust in, digital currencies, cryptocurrencies in a way that they don't trust government. It's quite a scary proposition in some ways.
That is true. Nowadays, if you look at the news, then so the policy flip back and forth. Yeah. So therefore, there's no certainty. Right. When people like to invest, they like to make sure that my money actually gets stable, a return. Yeah. But then, if I were to invest into something, but then if the policies swap, then it just make it so much uncertain. So therefore, Bitcoin perhaps would be another way that people can invest so that there's some kind of certainty.
And what about these so-called meme coins, Donald Trump famously launched a meme coin when he became president? I mean, what's going on there? Is that just a scam, or is there something valuable here?
Well, a meme coin different from usually a cryptocurrency, where the cryptocurrency usually have some real use. But the meme coin is community driven. It's an internet jokes. Right. And the most famous one you may have heard is called the Dogecoin. Yeah. So Elon Musk make it really famous a few years ago. And so earlier this year, Donald Trump actually released a meme coin, the Trump meme coin. That is a very interesting situation because right now he, as a president of the United States, doing something that have some kind of personal benefit as well. So therefore, while the boundary between a politician and also the personal gain becomes really blurry. Yeah. So that would be a concerning sign.
Yeah, and perhaps we shouldn't go any further into this because I am deeply skeptical of these things, and the conflicts of interest are obvious. But going back to Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, there is at least some potential that these become a currency of the future that is used to trade across boundaries in a way that sort of takes it outside of the traditional banking system. And of course, we're talking about cryptocurrencies. That is different than just a central bank digital currency, right? I mean, a bank can issue a digital currency which it controls, which is different from the cryptocurrencies.
Yes. So the central bank digital currency is controlled by a central authority, which is the central bank. While for the cryptocurrency, let's say the Bitcoin, there's no one single owner. So that would be a very different.
Got it. And then, again, that gets us back to this idea that it's a decentralized.
It's a decentralized.
Let's build on that and get into your research, because obviously we've been talking mostly about Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. But as you said right at the outset, blockchain is a technology for decentralizing essentially control over records of many types. You particularly looked in your research at counterfeiting. And you've got a title of your paper, Blockchain Adoption for Combating Deceptive Counterfeiting. Let's just spend a few minutes. What is that paper about? What is the problem, the business problem you're trying to solve with this paper?
Yeah, so in the title, I talk about deceptive counterfeit.
Yeah.
If we think about counterfeit, there are two types. One type is called deceptive. I'm a customer, I buy a product, I thought that is real, but then it turns out to be fake. The other type is non-deceptive. That means I'm a customer, I buy a product knowing that is fake, but I still choose to buy it because that is cheap.
Got it.
Well, as you can see from the customer perspective, I get really frustrated if I buy a deceptive counterfeit because I paid a full amount. I thought that is going to be a real product, but it turns out to be fake.
Right.
So what my paper does is that how blockchain can be used to address this problem. Give you some illustration. So that in real life, LVMH, so the really big, the luxury firm, and then what they have done is they partner with Microsoft to have a blockchain network. And basically, if I'm a customer, I buy a product, then I can swipe the QR code, and then that can link to the LV company to know that this is actually a genuine LV bag.
Right.
So how blockchain can be used to solve this counterfeiting situation in the luxury industry or in different industry as well.
So my Louis Vuitton bag or whatever has a QR code, and that's sort of sits on the blockchain as proof that it was a real bag. Is it? Sorry, in simplistic terms.
Yes, that is exactly.
So I, as a customer, can verify that this really was created by Louis Vuitton, not one of these knockoff companies, right?
Exactly. So therefore, that gain a confidence. Yeah. So because if I'm a customer buying a fake bag, I thought that is real, I get really frustrated.
Got it.
But then now, if there's a guarantee that is real, then so I have confidence in the brand.
Right. And so this is actually happening. Louis Vuitton is working with Microsoft. They've created a blockchain on which all of their products sit. And this is then used by customers to verify. And obviously the hope is that they will reduce the number of people who are creating knockoff versions. I get it. So what are some of the other sort of use cases today? Setting aside currency, we've talked about currency, but we're talking now about counterfeit goods. What are some of the other applications of blockchain that you see companies experimenting with at the moment?
Sure. I have written a case, and the case is looking at how the diamond industry use blockchain to address the situation that this is not a blood diamond.
Right.
You may know that the blood diamond are those that is from the West Africa or the Rebel region, and then I'm a customer. I buy a diamond. Diamond have a deep meaning to me because that signal my love to my wife, my love to my fiance. And I like to make sure that this diamond is from a clean place. And what my case is about is that there's a company called Chow Tai Fook in Hong Kong is using diamond, a blockchain implement onto diamond, so that when a customer buy the diamond, I swipe the code, then I know where the diamond is being mined, the entire processing process, and then how it gets to my hand. Yeah. So that increase my confidence that I'm buying a clean diamond rather than something that help to fund the rebellious in West Africa.
Got it. Let me just go to this bigger question about blockchain becoming this alternative way in which records are stored. Because, I've read up a little bit about it, and it's quite clear that there are some concerns about whether it will ever really take off. We've got famous cases of, collapses of various companies. FTX, Sam Bankman-Fried is a famous example. We've also got this concern that the blockchain requires huge amounts of processing power to make it work. And the question about whether it's ever going to actually be as efficient as a much more centralized record system. What's your response to that? I mean, perhaps you can help the listeners to understand what the biggest problems are and how we're attempting to resolve them.
Well, so basically, there is a trilemma about, for the Bitcoin, it's a scalable, security, decentralization. So when we talk about the scalability or the mining situation, like the environmental impact, that is one of the weakness about the Bitcoin network or some of the implementation about blockchain. Because in order to be decentralized and secure, then it takes a lot of mining in order to make it secure. But then that makes it not as scalable. And that has the environmental impact.
So you said trilemma, and this is not a word that many people know, but you're saying you can have you want scalability. You want security and you want
decentralization.
And you can always have two of these three, but not all three at the same time.
Yep. So that will be a balance between which one is more important.
Got it.
So therefore, in different network or different implementation about blockchain, so that maybe one is more important than the other, then there would be a trade-off between those two.
So you can always have stability and security, scalability and security, but then you almost certainly cannot do it in a decentralized.
Exactly. So if I am a centralized firm, I have a blockchain network, then it can be more scalable, it can be more secure, but then it's not decentralized.
Right.
So that would be the trilemma that people are trying to face.
Very interesting. And we're trying to find a way of getting all three, but at some level there are trade-offs. And the more decentralized you make it, the more actually it creates work for lots of people to maintain the decentralized nature of it.
Yes. Yeah. So that would be the challenge about blockchain.
Got it. So let's get to Canada, because I know you've written a policy piece on this topic, essentially saying Canada is kind of falling behind in terms of not just thinking about, but employing and using blockchain. Just tell us a little bit about where you think the problem is and what Canada might do differently.
Well, actually, Canada a few years ago is a leader in the blockchain sector.
Right.
Well, 2021, Bitcoin ETF, the first Bitcoin ETF was actually in Canada.
ETF is exchange-traded
fund.
So you could actually just buy and sell.
Yes.
Bitcoin.
And the purpose Bitcoin ETF is in Canada. That is the first one in the world that takes place 2021. While as a benchmark, US have the first Bitcoin ETF in 2024. Wow. So therefore, we are actually the leader a few years ago. Well, but then, as you know, that is a race between different countries. Yeah. So if you are not moving forward fast enough, other people is going to take your place. And after the 2021, things actually go downhill. Right. As an example, Singapore and Estonia, they are right now the leader in doing the digital identification, which is blockchain driven, or the DeFi, decentralized finance. US and Europe right now is in the leader. Or the CBDC, the central bank digital currency. China right now is doing as a leader as well. So that talks about if as a Canadian, if you are not moving fast enough, other people will move faster than you fall behind the race.
Right. And so what should the Canadian government be doing? They should be deregulating, because of course the more you deregulate and legitimize these things, the more risk you are taking. Are you suggesting that Canada should be actively experimenting in some of these new technologies in a more proactive way?
Yeah, so what I recommend the Canadian government can do is to focus on 2 or 3 key industries.
Oh, I see.
Let's say the healthcare industry, the energy industry, which we're really good at, and then trying to encourage more blockchain adoption within those key industries. And also to have some kind of regulation sandbox so that people would feel that, it promote innovation, but at the same time protecting the customer as well.
Right. Yeah, and of course this is always the tension, isn't it? You want to encourage experimentation. You don't want to take any huge risks. And my sense is Canada's been a little bit cautious here, and you would like them to see. You would like to see more experimentation.
Yes, and then focusing on some of the key industry. Yeah. I believe that would be a good first step.
Yeah. And healthcare and energy. I mean, energy, as you say, Canada's big in energy. Why healthcare? Because it's an industry which requires innovation to make it more efficient?
Yeah, like as an example, like when you go to different hospital, you always have to do the body check again, and then all the record is all scattered apart. But imagine if one day there's a unified healthcare record that you can use from one hospital to the other. That saves so much time.
Yeah.
So therefore, that would be a place where the blockchain, digital identity or the unified healthcare record can be really taking off, saving taxpayer money and also make the whole system more efficient.
Got it. So my big takeaway, and we'll close after this, is that blockchain as a technology, as a technological innovation, allows kind of for the first time the possibility to create records without central control. And the reason perhaps this is so enticing today is our trust in central governments and indeed in centralized companies is a little bit sort of falling apart, thanks to, unfortunately, quite a lot of governments around the world not being as responsible as perhaps they used to be. Is that right?
That is correct. So the record onto the blockchain network is immutable.
Right.
So therefore, I know that whatever that is written will not be changed. Yeah. So that also give myself as a patient in the healthcare setting or as a customer, I have more control about what data I can release to the public or what data I can keep myself. So I can have more control as a citizen.
Yeah. No, I mean, it seems attractive. I mean, most of us like the idea that we are in control of our own records, our own livelihoods. There's a bit of distrust of central authorities for understandable reasons. But we are clearly still in the early stages of this technology, because my sense is that lots of companies are starting to put in place, so we say, experiments and prototypes and even sort of working prototypes. But this has not scaled up in the way that perhaps its biggest proponents would have hoped.
Yeah, like a technology adoption takes time.
Yes.
As an example, we think about internet.
Right.
Well, for the internet, so it started 1990s, but then it is until 2010 that there's some new killing apps for the internet. Blockchain right now, we are still in the very early phase, and then maybe in a few years there will have a killer app. At that time, then blockchain will really take off. We are not at that point yet.
Got it. I mean, there is a parallel to artificial intelligence, isn't there? Because obviously artificial intelligence, again, is this fundamental technology, and we're still trying to figure out the best ways of using it. And the killer app that emerges at some point, when it arrives, will genuinely revolutionize kind of usage.
Yes, and then I deeply hope that the killer app is coming from Canada. We do have the people that is really smart, really entrepreneurship as well. So therefore, I hope that with the right incentive, then the students nowadays, they are able to develop the next killer app and make Canada great again.
That's good. Excellent. So I think you've given us the key takeaway, which is we've got to continue to invest in and innovate using blockchain technology. Yes. Any other last takeaway for the listeners before we close?
Well, so I believe that being a leader, you may or may not be aware about what blockchain is, but then your responsibility is to see 5 years from now, how does this technology is going to disrupt my company? If you do not have the foresee well, then you may become the next Blockbuster. Yeah. So then Blockbuster get destroyed by Netflix. So hopefully that you have the foreseeing view so that you know what will be ahead with the technology, and then you can reposition your company to best adopt with this new technology.
Perfect. We will leave it there. Thank you very much. You've been listening to Dialogue with the Dean from Ivey Business School. A big thank you to my guest, Hubert Pun, for sharing his time and insights. And of course, thank you for tuning in. On our next episode, I'll be joined by Zoe Kinnears, Associate Professor, Organizational Behavior and Sustainability, and the John F. Wood Chair for Innovation in Business Education, discussing pressing issues around leadership and gender in the workplace. Until next time, goodbye.
This was Dialogue with the Dean, an Ivey Impact Podcast series. For more insights from Ivey, including thought leadership on critical issues and additional podcast episodes, visit ivyimpact.ca or subscribe on your preferred podcast platform. Thanks for tuning in.